Rafa to Theo, nice ball. Release Theo. Theo with a first time ball. Pulisic. So for some Milan fans, actually for a lot of Milan fans, the Italian Super Cup or the Supercoppa Italiana has never been the trophy that they've necessarily dreamed of. It's the Serie A title, the Champions League. Those are the trophies that Milan's history is built on. But if Sergio Conceicao is to truly turn around this Milan team and really turn them into something special in the long run, then this Supercoppa win will go down in history as the turning point of AC Milan. 2 matches coached, 1 trophy won. When this old video of Sergio Conceicao at Porto was shared amongst Milan fans, we never expected that it's gonna get replicated in 1 week of him becoming a coach of the Rossoneri. And I mean this, today's match, this might be one of the greatest, if not the greatest Milan Derby ever played. And I'm gonna give my 4 takeaways from this match. You guys know how this works. Green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. And the first takeaway from today's match, this one could be a green box, but I think everything today, when you win silverware, you win a trophy, I guess every single box should be a silver box. That's how we're gonna do it today. So the first silver box from today's match, this one has to go out to Theo Hernandez. Now, the Theo story is very interesting. I think for me, this has to start off from significantly further back in the past. There have been a lot of up and down moments this season. There have been a lot of things that have happened under Paulo Fonseca, and it has resulted in a lot of Milan fans being critical of a lot of Milan players, maybe rightfully so at times. But I have always been a staunch supporter of the guys that have won Milan games in the past. I have always unequivocally supported them and waited for their form to improve. A lot of people in the comment section, in the live chats, in comments, other spaces, have constantly said things like, sell Rafael Leao, sell Theo Hernandez. Why? Because they didn't put in some of the best performances in. And that's fine. Fans are supposed to criticize when you're not playing well. That's totally okay. But the extremity to which some fans tend to go, where it's, just sell this guy. Rafael Leao, sell him, he's useless. Theo Hernandez, sell him, he's useless. How useless were they today? Milan doesn't really score off of free kicks, so it's going to be quite the day today if it happens. Theo! Yes! Let's go, man. We give our key players who have history of playing at this club so well, making commitments to this club. Theo Hernandez was the first player to make a long-term commitment to this AC Milan team. They hadn't won a Serie A title, nothing. They just made 1 Champions League qualification. But he made a long-term commitment to the squad. You know who walked away? Another player who had been here for a while, Hakan Çalhanoğlu. You know who else walked away? Another player who had been here for even longer, in Gianluigi Donnarumma. Theo Hernandez was the first one to stick around. So when he goes through a rough patch of form, we just say, kick this guy out. We don't stick around for him. We don't have that patience that, hey, you know what? Let's just keep supporting the guy. Over time, he will come good. He's been so good for so many seasons. If he's having a slow season, let's do our part now and support these players. But look at what he did for you today. As I said in the video, Milan rarely ever scores a free kick goal. I don't remember the last time I saw them score a free kick goal. And that was absolutely clutch from Theo. And then assisting the second goal for Christian Pulisic. Yes, he may not have been the best when it came to Milan conceding that first goal. He was slow, but let's be real, the entire Milan backline was flat-footed. Specifically from the right flank was weak. So my only request to Milan fans is let's just try to be sometimes a little bit more patient with our players. How in the world has anybody tried to convince me that Jimenez should replace Theo Hernandez? I mean, are we just ignoring how these guys have played in the past? Are we just pretending that we don't know how they play? In the beginning of the season, we had the same thing about Noah Okafor. Oh, Okafor should start ahead of Rafael Leao. Really? I never believed in that, and I spoke constantly against that, and I was called all sorts of names in the comment section. And there are a few things that I pointed out that I want to point out today. First of all, Theo Hernandez came out after the game and said, hey, I still don't feel 100%, but I feel like I can help the team out a little bit more. He also took responsibility for the firing of Paulo Fonseca. He didn't just ignore that. He said, we as players were also responsible for his firing. It wasn't just on him, and I wish him all the best. That was classy from Theo Hernandez. And as I said, there have been rumors about the fact that this might be his last season. Maybe it still will be. We don't know. But if the problem was coming from within the structure of the team, in terms of belief, in terms of not feeling like there was an improvement in the squad, spot and he wanted to go somewhere else and win things, the presence of Sergio Conceicao might marginally change that. Winning the Italian Super Cup might be that moment that triggers that belief that, okay, you know what, actually I do want to stay here for the long term. And even in the last match, after that match against Juventus, I pointed this particular part out in my post-match analysis. That arm that Sergio Conceicao had around Theo Hernandez while Ismail Benacer was giving that speech. As I said, was it coincidence? Maybe it was. I feel like there was a bit of a meaning behind that. And even today, if you watch the celebration of Sergio Conceicao doing that little dance that he does with the cigar in his mouth, the first Milan player that he walked up to and, high-fived and gave a big hug to was Theo Hernandez. So now, are those coincidences, or is it a coach who realizes the true value of a player of the quality of Theo Hernandez, believes in him and wants him to stay here and wants him to start, trusting the system and the process of Milan once again? And that's the piece about Theo that I talked about in the last video, that he might need a change of scenery with the coach. And I also want to see how he performs when Rafael Leao is fitted back into the lineup. It might have a lot to do with obviously the return of Rafael Leao from injury. You saw what happened today when he had his main guy running alongside him. And the second takeaway from today's match has to go out to Tammy Abraham. With Tammy, it's basic stuff. It's the fact that he scored the winner at the end of the day. I mean, it's funny because in the last match also, Sergio Conceicao made the decision to bring on Tammy Abraham as a substitute, and he was a pretty important player. It was, his movement for that second goal that Yunus Musa scored, Gatti's own goal. It was his movement that forced Di Gregorio to, overcommit to coming closer to the penalty spot instead of staying closer to his line. And then Musa took that shot, deflected off of Gatti and went into the goal. Even today, his impact was way more significant and way more direct. He ended up scoring the match winner, picking up the player of the match trophy. And Tammy was overcome with emotion after he scored that goal. He was crying, not even after full time. He started crying after he scored the goal. So in that moment, you sort of understand, the impact that the injuries that he's had in the past. He missed out on pretty much an entire season with Roma, got loaned out to Milan, a dry loan still. We don't know what's going to happen with his future, but a dry loan to Milan, gets a fresh scenery, obviously a bigger club. And to go down and, printing his name in history as a goal scorer, winning what I believe is the 50th trophy in AC Milan's history, that's got to be pretty special. And the first shout out from today's match, and let's be real, this could have easily have been a golden box, a silver box as well, would have to go to Mike Maignan for pretty much keeping Milan in the game. First fall in the first half, he made that stop on Di Marco. I think that was the only shot on target in the first half, if it wasn't for Lautaro's goal. In the second half, that, goal line stop, that ball was pretty much 2/3 of the way into the goal. I think it was a header by Carlos Augusto. I think he was put off really well by Yunus Musa too, to give him credit. But it was an important stop for Mike. But I think it may have been Denzel Dumfries. That stop in 80 plus minutes after the scoreline was 2-2, after that block from Malik Thiaw, it was massive. And Mike really kept Milan in the game today. Even though he conceded those two goals, you could, maybe, I don't really blame him too much for the second goal that Inter scored. I do have some frustrations about the first goal that they scored, because even in the match against Juventus, and as I've highlighted in the past multiple times with Mike, is those near post misses. When he's on the near post and he concedes a goal, that can be a little bit more frustrating. But the general performance of Mike Maignan was truly a match-winning one, and easily he gets a shout out. And the next one's going to be a call out. Unfortunately, we're going to have some, negative elements in today's video as well, because it has to be a fair analysis of what happened. You got to give Emerson Royale a call out. It was such a good first half played by Milan. I tweeted this out, that this was arguably one of the best halves that Milan has played against Inter in terms of looking stable. Not necessarily shots on goal, not necessarily chances created, but just looking like a solid unit. But in that 45 minutes injury time, the way that Emerson switched off on that throw-in that went out that Inter had to take, from that throw-in they started that attack and ended up scoring the goal. It wasn't needed. Oh my God, who switched off that? Emerson switched off completely. Oh my God, you guys freaking conceded a goal in the 46th minute, you after doing all the hard work. How can you concede a goal? Who switched off there? It was Emerson Royale who switched off on the right, man. You can't just walk around. You can't switch off And there's a degree of, comfort in just turning off mentally or being a little lazy in this Milan team that we've seen in the past. We saw, I think, a lot of it under Stefano Pioli. We saw a weird amount of it under Paulo Fonseca. But I as I tweeted, I do believe that a coach like Sergio Conceicao will be able to get it out of these players, because he's just gonna move them. He's gonna sell them or demand that he's just not gonna play them if they continue to play in such a lackadaisical manner. Because as we've noticed with him, intensity is far more important at times than tactics. And I'll address that a little bit later in the video. But to me, with Emerson, the mistake that he made there, it could have costed Milan the game. It could have costed Milan another trophy. And the third takeaway from today's match, this one's going to have to go out to Christian Pulisic. Rafa to Theo, nice ball. Release Theo. Theo with a first time ball. Pulisic. Pulisic! Let's go! Let's go! There we go! There we go. I think seeing my reaction, you guys can already tell. I did believe in this team. This was not a shock to me. I'll discuss that in full length, in the Conceicao part of the video. But when it comes to Christian, he left once again his mark on the game. And I think the one thing that we have to point out is the fact that he played on Friday. Didn't he play all 90 minutes, if I remember it right? And then he plays the entire game again today. Just talk about fitness for a guy who's been out injured for almost a month in the past. These were his first 2 games back, and he comes back and makes an immediate impact in the match against Juventus. He scores that, penalty goal in basically the semi-final of the Super Cup. Pulisic! Yes! And then he comes to the final and again scores an equalizer, making it 2-2. And what a strike. Inter has one of the best defenses in Serie A. There's no question about that. He had one of the best center backs, if not the best center back, arguably in all of Europe, most definitely in Serie A, in Bastoni on him. For him to be able to get away from Bastoni, have pretty much his back towards the goal, but still find an angle and a laneway to be able to get it past multiple Inter defenders and the goalkeeper. At this point, you're kind of running out of superlatives for the guy. How many things can you say about him? But that pass, in football, you don't get anything for it, but it's a true hockey assist. It's the assist to the assist. That pass to Rafael Leao for the winner in the 93rd minute. I wish I could use the video and show you Pulisic's reaction to when Tammy Abraham scored that goal. The guy was almost crying. He just turned towards the camera and he's just doing this, and he's almost looking like he's tearing up. And Tammy Abraham was full out crying. So the emotional, impact of being part of this team, being able to get consistent minutes, scoring goals, leaving his impact, but that, once again, pass to Rafael Leao was a dime of a pass. Inter's defense in that position, in that moment, was caught napping, didn't track where Leao was going. And Leao is a left-wing player, so there could have been some confusion about the fact that he was suddenly on the right flank. And, there might have been some confusion about, which player is going to be taking care of him. But the way that Leao, released himself, and the way that Pulisic, had the intelligence to find him and execute that pass, it's what resulted in Milan lifting the trophy. He was, just like Theo Hernandez, just like Mike Maignan and other players we've discussed, Pulisic was the difference maker. And it was Christian who actually came out after the match and talked specifically about the coach that I did want to, address, as I mentioned earlier on. And he said that with Conceicao, there's not as much of a focus on tactics. It is a coach that is much more pushy on intent and energy and effort and intensity. And I feel like that personality trait, look, Pulisic is a skilled player. There's no question about it. He's a very high quality player. But you can't say that he has a similar skill level of a player like Rafael Leao. What Pulisic sort of breeds off of is his intensity. It's his robustness of never stopping, never giving up. And, in Serie A, at the conclusion, an 85th minute mark, there's always they put out a stat on the bottom left corner of the screen as to how many runs a player, how many kilometers or miles, whatever, a player has run throughout the entirety of the game. Pulisic is almost always, regardless of which opponent you're playing, he's almost always number 1 or number 2. At least in the recent past that I've seen. In the 2 matches played against Juventus and today against Inter, I believe he was number 1 in both. And when you have a player of that profile that is ready to run for you and put his all for you, and you have a coach whose system is sort of based on that, I mean, let's see what Conceicao can bring out of a player like Pulisic then. Because that player, that guy will fit like, you know, hand in glove into a system like that. And the fact that he had been injured for almost a month and Conceicao still chose to start him, play him basically 90 minutes for both the games, tells me that he appreciates and he sees that intensity that he wants from his players, he's going to get from Pulisic on a consistent basis. So a solid performance for Christian. He lifts his first official trophy with the Rossoneri. And if you were to pick an MVP for the Italian Super Cup, a player that scored a goal in the first match against Juventus and scored a goal again today and played an important role in Milan scoring that 93rd minute winner, you have to say the MVP for the Super Cup for Milan would have to probably be Christian Pulisic. But you guys let me know in the comment section what you think. And a quick little shout out, this one has to be given to the fans in Riyadh. You have to, because for both the games that Milan has played in the Italian Super Cup, playing in Saudi Arabia, all the fans there, overwhelmingly, it has been a pro Milan support base. They have booed Juventus, they have booed Inter, they have not even really shown up to watch Inter play against Atalanta in the other leg of the semifinal. It was a sold out crowd for a match between Milan and Juventus. Obviously, it was a sold out crowd today, but the fans were overwhelmingly on the side of Milan. And you could see that it felt like a home game. As I tweeted out in the last match, it feels like it's a home crowd and a home game for Milan. So a certain shout out for those guys who really helped this Milan team feel like they were home away from home and ended up lifting the trophy. The point of discussion, the shout out, the love naturally has to be for Sergio Conceicao. Now, as I mentioned, we didn't really expect to see this dance happening this quick, but the fact of the matter, he's coached Milan for 2 games and he's already won 1 trophy. He's only been at the club for a freaking week. This might be the fastest, I believe, any coach in the history of maybe the club. I don't know that much. I don't remember that much, but this might be the fastest a coach has come to Milan and won a trophy. And I think the key piece that really jumps at me in both of these 2 games that Conceicao has coached Milan is that they came back from down. They were 1-0 down against Juventus. They won it 2-1. They were 2-0 down against Inter. They won it 3-2. And these 2 teams are arguably the best defensive sides in the entire league. So back-to-back matches for you to be down and come back to win, not even force penalties, but truly outscore the other side and not concede a single goal when you start scoring, that is a mentality trait that this Milan team has not had in, I might just be able to say multiple months, if not over a year. Guys, this is what I tweeted out. And this is not a tweet that I put out after Milan had already won the game. But I genuinely felt like it was very early, but Conceicao did look like he was the answer. And as I said, it was all in the attitude and the approach. You can see in the last line, I cannot recognize this Milan team, and we're still down 2-1. At that point in time, the team was still down 2-1, but the way that they were playing just felt different. There was different intensity to this Milan team, and there was a different confidence. The confidence was established, I think, in the first half, where they looked really comfortable playing against an Inter side that has beaten them in the past 6 games in a row. So for Milan to suddenly look that comfortable, concede a silly goal, and then concede early on in the second half, the scoreline was 2-0. But I'll be honest, and I mean this, I wish I could show you guys pictures but I just don't want to risk the channel because they don't, YouTube doesn't really like this stuff, but or it has some rules around this stuff. But it was 2-0, and I put down cash for them to tie the game. I don't think I've done that in a long time. The only reason I did that because I genuinely believed that something was happening with this team today. And then when the scoreline became 2-2, and I mean this, these are messages I can still show you. I, told my friends that I'd also shared this with. I told them, cash out. Don't stick with it. And you know why I asked them to do that? I genuinely believed that this Milan team will pull off the win. So that belief, that attitude change, that has truly come from Conceicao becoming the coach of this team. And I think now we can clearly tell what we had been missing out while we had Paulo Fonseca as the coach. It's very evident that this was the guy that Milan should have gone with from the beginning of the season. They unnecessarily the management wasted the first 4 or 5 months for no reason. And I think this tweet by Anthony Torguru, who does a great job with Sempre Milan, I think it stands out to me the most. Conceicao, hired 7 days ago, flew to Saudi Arabia with the flu. You could still see the guy was sniffling and not feeling his best. Held 2 practices in 1 day, beat Juventus, then beat Inter, 3 days later, and won a trophy. And that last line is the key for me. It doesn't matter what ends up happening moving forward. Either he's going to become a permanent legend and a coach that is very well respected by Milan fans, like someone like Stefano Pioli, or he's going to be, become part of that Milan folklore where he came in a week, lifted a trophy with the club. But either way, Sergio Conceicao with this trophy has cemented his name in the history of Milan, adding to yet another trophy for the club. And the final takeaway from today's match, this one's going to be a silver box for Rafael Leao. Pulisic, Christian, Leao, goal! Let's go! This is what I tweeted. I mean, I have to share these tweets with you guys because for whatever reason, whatever I was asking for on Twitter today was kind of coming true. This was it. As simple as that. Hands folded, please help this team. He came on after the scoreline was 2-0. He made an immediate impact. It was a matter of a few seconds after Leao came on that he got a ball through the midfield. He made that run. One of the Inter players took him down. Theo Hernandez stepped up and scored that goal. But that free kick was 1 seconds after Rafael Leao came onto the field and sort of changed the dimension of the Milan attack. That goal in the 80th minute, that pass, the hockey assist in this case, came from Rafael Leao. Made a beautiful pass to Theo Hernandez to release him on the left flank. Theo Hernandez crosses the ball in. Christian Pulisic does the rest. So even in the second goal, Leao had an impact. And then on the third goal, that intelligent, high IQ run from Leao for Pulisic to then find him, and that little dink of a pass from Leao to Tammy Abraham, an easy tap in, the assist was created from Leao. So when I folded my hands and I prayed that Rafael Leao will help this team, he came and played a role in the team scoring all 3 goals when they were down 2-0. And the same points that I made with Theo Hernandez, this plea has to come to Milan fans. You guys have got to support the players more when they're down. I understand that sometimes players are not playing well. No one can have only an upward trajectory. You're gonna go through ups and downs, but sometimes you have to just respect the quality of the particular player and give them the time to sometimes mess up a little bit. Get their confidence back up. I never ever went away from Rafael Leao. I asked everybody on multiple occasions to keep supporting the guy. Let's support him the way that he supported Charles de Ketelaere. And now he's paying dividends. And that's the interesting part about Leao. The last time Milan lifted a trophy was the Serie A title in 2022. Milan won that game 3-0 against Sassuolo. You know who assisted all 3 goals? Rafael Leao. Milan wins today 3-2. The next trophy they won 2.5 years later. You know which player had his hand in all 3 goals? Rafael Leao. So it's time Milan fans take note of that. And the next time this guy goes through a rough run of form or a slow run of form, let's do better and support our players. And there you have it, Milanisti. Those are the 4 takeaways from today's match. 2.5 years is a long time to not win a trophy. You could say that this trophy officially marks the beginning, arguably, of the Sergio Conceicao era. And at this point, the biggest thing this team has to show is how they perform in the match against Cagliari. Because if this team can continue to play the way that they played today against Inter, having that attitude of being down 2-0, come back to win 3-2, a team like that would be fighting for way more trophies in the future. And as always from my side, Forza Milan, grazie mille, ciao tutti. Since Milan's dropped an anniversary jersey, and I got my hands on it.